Good morning. Welcome to 9 to Noon, 651 Carpets Plus Studios. It's the Fan, and it's Nordo in for PA. Maybe I'm just a weirdo. First of all, cheers and covenant claps to all of you on the grind in traffic this morning.
Ooh-wee.
This is something I would listen to while my super neurotic mind is insane with being stuck in traffic. I'm running through like the next 6 days of to-do. I feel like in the moment I'll never get there. And my anxiety over the fact that it's not a phobia. I'm not in therapy for it. I have such an aversion to being late that I get like mentally uncomfortable with the idea of not being somewhere on time. To the point where I leave so early that my wife, let's just say she's been unhappy wandering aimlessly at a sporting event, maybe a concert or two, 90 minutes before even the opener gets going.
Oh, so you're the 3 hours at the airport guy every time, right?
Well, yeah, part of that. I mean, you got to have a couple of beverages before you lift off.
Yeah, of course.
They just hit different at the in the terminal. I don't know why.
Rules don't exist in the terminal.
No, correct. Yeah, absolutely. I do get to the airport quite early, as a matter of fact, yes. And I could sign up for pre-check or clear, etc. But no, I sweat it out just like all of you have sweated out on the roads. But I would listen to an instrumental like this. This would calm me down.
I do the same thing. That's funny that you say that. I always search out an instrument, something with no lyrics, because my mind is always so hectic and chaotic. And sometimes it's like, I don't need to hear lyrics. I don't need to evoke anything or imagine anything. I just need my brain to shut the bleep up for a second.
Absolutely. I don't need anybody else to emote. I don't want to hear your perspective right now.
Right.
I just need to feel this music. And we're gonna feel the Friday football feast vibe tomorrow. It is Buffalo Wild Wings, Apple Valley. And PA will be back in the mix. It'll be PA in charge. Softy from Seattle, KJR, out in Seattle. Heavy, of course, on Vikings and Seahawks. And Softy, I mean, that's immovable object, unstoppable force meeting each other. He's going to be on the hotline, 160 decibels, crackling and cackling and screaming into the phone, despite the fact it's going to be like 9 a.m. there. Most people are just getting out of bed. He rolls out of bed sounding like a jet engine. And so Softy's going to be with PA in charge tomorrow. Alec Lewis, I believe Chad Greenway in the mix. It's going to be an awesome Friday feast. And shout out to Softy, by the way, as we get to the TimberTech set list. He hooked me up with a guest during the 11 a.m. hour, Hugh Millen, former NFL quarterback, former Washington Husky, as a matter of fact, which is the connection to the Pacific Northwest. Maybe we'll ask him about Penix getting the start over Kirk in Atlanta, but he's been analyzing Seahawks football for a number of years now. Excited to talk with Hugh. But there's plenty to get into today as it is on the football side. I'd like to begin 9 to noon today because there will be a game at Target Center tonight, and it'll be the return of this guy.
Here's Ant around the screen by Gobert. Makes the right pass to Nikhil. Corner to Towns. Pump fake. Moves to his left. Fires on the three and hits it. Timberwolves 7-0 run to begin the second half. They lead by one.
Great
51-50.
Great footwork by Towns, too, to be able to pump fake, adjust himself, and step back behind the line and knock down the three.
First overall pick in 2015, Karl Anthony Towns out of Kentucky. Last selection that Flip Saunders would make, sadly, before he lost his battle with cancer in 2015. 9 seasons, ups and downs, a fair amount of losing at times, but nobody has ever doubted the talent.
Come the Timberwolves on the 7-0 burst. Towns thought about a three, puts on the deck, drives in and slams it through with the right hand. It's a 9-0 Wolves run. They've got their second 2-point lead of the game.
9-0 run for Minnesota. Last 4 possessions for Denver. 0 for 3 and a turnover.
Ooh, a bit of bravado. We know the bravado. We know the flailing arms. We know the attitude. We know the petulance, Timberwolves fans. Always in the conversation was that with Karl. But when the team needed buckets, kid got buckets.
Really feel like the frustration is starting to build for Jamal. Here's Gordon one-on-one against Alexander Walker inside. Double clutch, a shot in the rim, no good. The Nuggets are now shooting 32% here in the first half. Towns with it, right corner. He'll just turn, fire over Murray. And drain it. It's a 3 for Karl Anthony Towns. Michael Malone needs a timeout. It's an 18-3 Timberwolves run. They lead by 16. It's their largest lead of the series.
And finally, as we move on, tomorrow and beyond, remember that your favorite basketball team absolutely does not win that series against the Nuggets without him.
Nuggets won't foul here with 7 on the shot clock. Conley left angle. Drives on Michael Porter Jr. Runs it up. No. Slam follow. Karl Anthony Towns. He soared in from the wing. He puts the Wolves up 7 with 39 seconds left. Jokic up into the front court. Off to KCP. He'll rise up for the 3. It's offline. Towns has got the rebound with 30 seconds left. The Nuggets will back off. They won't foul. It's over. It's over.
That courtesy of Mr. Horton, Alan Horton, Timberwolves Radio Network. We're your home for Timberwolves basketball. And tonight at 8:30 p.m., whether it's on the app or it's right here, 100.3 FM, The Fan, 8:30 p.m. tip-off. The Minnesota Timberwolves are hosting the New York Knicks at Target Center. The return of Karl Anthony Towns, Max Fuller.
Yes, sir.
Oh, it's a beautiful thing.
It's going to be emotional.
And, running through it, in terms of franchise history, this is not breaking news. I mean, you guys all get this. You follow the team. You love the team. He's the absolute stone cold second best player in Wolves lore. Only Kevin Garnett more statistically accomplished over his tenure than Karl. And we know this. Neither led to titles, right? And we've transferred now all of that hope, how quickly things can change, of course, over the course of a summer. We are now squarely focused on the young Anthony Edwards, to the Ant-Man. But I'm truly hoping that tonight we can be nostalgic in a way, in a positive way, when we see him playing for Tibbs and the Knicks. Don't have to be nostalgic about Tibbs. Weird short era there with Tibbs. And then there was Jimmy Butler. There was all sorts of things over that short period of time. Scott Layden and company. But be nostalgic in a positive way. I'm not trying to lecture you as Timberwolves fans. You can feel however you want to feel. I never want to get into, well, when XYZ Vikings player returns to U.S. Bank Stadium, will they boo? Don't boo, Vikings fans. Whatever you do, despite paying $500 for tickets, $150 for parking, and it's $15 beer night, don't do that. I'm not trying to lecture you, but I hope that we can stay focused and look back in a positive light overall. When it comes to Karl Anthony Towns, because save for recent years, he missed a bunch of games over the course of a year and a half or so. There were really never injury issues in terms of tagging him as injury laden or injury prone. There was never drama. Sometimes he would say, ridiculous things. There's no doubt about that, as many athletes in the history of sports have. But overall, there was never an off-court issue. As a matter of fact, I remember it when he first is traded, because how quickly, you don't win the Nuggets series without Karl.
You don't even win the Suns series without him.
Fair point. Absolutely. Everybody was awful against Kyrie and Luka. Yeah, there was no stopping it.
It's not just his fault.
So, but immediately you go into the summer and it's like, well, when are they going to trade Cat? When are they going to trade Cat? Nothing happens. Free agency opens up for some teams, for Wolves fans for many years. The funnest part of the summer or the funnest part of the calendar year, in fact, was free agency period, where you start kind of dream weaving, because you can play fantasy basketball more so than you can probably play any of the other fantasy sports when it comes to picking your dream lineup. But, shortly after he was traded, there was it's about time. You immediately start talking about Julius Randle and DiVincenzo and this and so forth. But you did see a fair amount, because I believe there's a lot of Wolves fans that will actually remember him best for some things that he did off the court in the community, more so than his biggest dunks, more so than his clutchest of threes. He did really endear himself to Minnesota. He was loyal to Minnesota, and it was all about, from his standpoint, trying to win games. Now, how realistic was it at times with various rosters? We can talk about how realistic Karl was over the course of his time here and how he spoke of things, but you can't speak about anything other than pure love, I think, effort, and ultimately a lot of contribution from Cat to this team. Max, as we watch this game tonight, what pops in your head?
Yeah, that's a good point, Nordo, because as soon as he got traded, there were countless stories about Karl Anthony Towns, the human being. I get that people have some consternation with Karl Anthony Towns, the player, but Karl Anthony Towns, the human being, by all means, was dedicated to Minnesota. We always complain about how when nobody wants to stay here and leaves for the big markets and everything. We had a guy that is one of the best in the league that wanted to be here.
Wanted to be.
Always wanted to be here, never asked for a trade. I'm not going to tell people what to do either, but I think just consider Karl Anthony Towns the human being and that he gave his all to this Timberwolves team. Again, in a lot of seasons where it wasn't realistic for them to even make the playoffs, let alone make a playoff push, and he delivered whenever they did actually form a team around him. He was the first person to kind of sacrifice his game for Rudy Gobert. As soon as Anthony Edwards started to make his ascension, Karl Anthony Towns pretty much backed off right away, said, hey, this is Anthony Edwards' team, and he pretty much played the Robin to Anthony Edwards Batman ever since then, and obviously just took leaps and bounds in his game in different ways. He's become a hell of a defender over the last couple of years under Chris Finch, and now he's flourishing over in New York. So he is, like you said, the second best player in franchise history. It's going to be emotional, especially because it'd be a little less emotional if the Knicks weren't doing better than the Wolves. And granted, they only have 2 more wins than us, but just the optics of it all, he's getting along great there. The New York fans are embracing him. It's like, when you break up with the gal and there's not necessarily anything wrong. Nobody cheated on the other one or anything. You just think in your head, oh, well, I can kind of do better.
It's an amicable separation.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
Then a couple of months later, you look on Instagram and she got a little thicker and she's got a better job. Her new man is looking more handsome and muscular than you, and you're feeling a little salty, and you realize the grass isn't always greener because you're still swiping on Tinder and hoping to bring someone home before the lights turn on at 2 a.m.
This felt like this just got really personal.
Just speaking, from a general point of view.
Understood. Yeah, the Max Fuller monologue to begin 9 to noon. You made actually, it's kind of an interesting point. When we brought Rudy here, it was the 99% of it was, how is Cat going to change?
Right.
How is Cat going to alter his game? How is Cat going, and it fell on Karl, and others were part of this mix as well, of course, but it really felt on how Cat was ultimately going to accommodate Rudy. And he did have to make significant, in some ways, changes to how he spaced himself on the court, how he saw the game, and ultimately the decision making throughout games.
And he did it almost instantly. Obviously, he got hurt for a large part of that first season, but almost instantly it was very glaringly obvious that Karl Anthony Towns was the first and for a while the only person that changed his game to complement Rudy Gobert, a la D'Angelo Russell, and not even wanting to pass Rudy the ball. And we've seen little glints of that a bit this year again with Julius Randle and Rudy Gobert and Dante DiVincenzo as well, although he's been gelling a little bit better with Rudy. But we're seeing little glints of that again. But Karl Anthony Towns, it just speaks to him as a teammate that he always accommodated whatever was needed of him. And as you said, I mean, we wouldn't have beaten the Nuggets without him. No chance. We wouldn't have even gotten out of the first round without him because he was excellent guarding Kevin Durant, I should say. And now we see what the Wolves are without him, which is a borderline play-in team. And that's probably what they would have been last year as well without him.
Yeah, and they have work to do. DiVincenzo still trying to shoot out of whatever he's not figuring out as of yet. Julius Randle. The defense has gotten so much better over the last couple of weeks. If that trend continues, I think the conversation around our team changes. To the text line, I do see this, Shane and Shakopee. It's crazy how it took trading the guy for you clowns to go from ripping Cat to simping for Cat because he was one of us. I don't think I'm necessarily simping for him. I always liked Cat's game, but there were issues, and I will say this: it's hypocritical, but just acknowledging. I think I've been lazy about it over time at times, too easily falling into the trap of the buts. We know the issues. We fouling at bad times. He could be a runaway train in the lane, and it was an easy charge attacking the hoops. The emotions getting the best of him. I'm not mad at that, Shane. In some ways, it is once a person's gone, you have a better chance to kind of look at things in totality. I praised the guy a ton. I did focus on some of the aspects that frustrated the hell out of me at times, but in the end, the 9 seasons he gave us were absolutely fantastic. And it's interesting too. He's actually shooting better from deep right now than he ever has in his career. It's almost 44%. He's still getting 5 up a game, and he's not compromising his overall shooting. He's at 53%. That's not bad. He's averaging almost 14 boards a game. That would be a career high. He's still passing. He's still getting a block a game. And so, this isn't like where Kirk moves on and imploded and you're deciding how empathetic to be. I mean, this guy's absolutely balling at MSG. So, as we mentioned, DiVincenzo still trying to figure where our coach still has, it appears, and frankly, the Knicks, I mean, I assume the Cavs will come back to earth a little bit. I can't imagine that sustains, but now we're 30 games in. Celtics are the Celtics. And then it is kind of everybody else. There is this significant line of demarcation that kind of separates everything else. But the Knicks, I think, are third in the conference right now, and they're right there, and they're playing pretty well. And so I'm just hoping that the Wolves and Target Center have some cool stuff planned for tonight. I heard that they do. But in the end, 8:30 p.m. tonight, it's going to be an absolute blast.
Yeah, it's gonna be emotional. Get the tissues ready. Don't burn those Karl Anthony Towns jerseys. And just Shane, I will say I took the sword out of the stone to defend Karl Anthony Towns' honor, probably more than some of his own family members did. I always supported Karl Anthony Towns. I'm just happy that he's finally getting the respect. It is pretty crazy how night and day the public and national opinion on Karl Anthony Towns has changed, because now all of a sudden I'm seeing people go, well, maybe he is the best big man shooter in the game. And wow, Karl Anthony Towns is one of the better players in the league. And all it took for him was to go to a New York team.
Well, I'm curious, and that has the chance to change here, because at some point, if DiVincenzo figures it out,
right,
and Randall continues to do his thing, and we start seeing, I mean, the West is so muddy right now. I mentioned it yesterday. It's the Thunder and then kind of everybody else, but from Memphis at 2 through the Warriors at 8 or 9, I think there's a 2-loss gap.
Yeah,
so I mean,
insane.
everybody's in the mix there, and maybe that conversation and the nostalgia about Cat can change. But for a day, I think it's important just to take the time to be like, cheers, and the tip of the cap to the Cat, who came back and will come back tonight at Target Center, 8:30 p.m. Tip right here on your home for Wolves basketball. The Fan. As we get things started here 9 to noon, let's kick it off with the TimberTech set list. Thank you, TimberTech, for bringing 9 to noon to the airwaves on the Fan. Michael Russo, the Minnesota Wild got throttled last night. Panthers in town. It was absolutely ugly. And Russo's going to kind of talk some aftermath, and then moving forward from that, it's still a very injury-laden group. Lieber in studio, thanks to Maple Grove Lock and Safe. He's going to be in studio at 10, like always. And then at 11:20, I mentioned Hugh Millen, former NFL quarterback. And born in Iowa, raised in the Pacific Northwest, went to the University of Washington, played for a bunch of teams, and now he analyzes Seahawks football at a high level. Softy suggested him. I got to go with Softy's suggestion. That means Hugh Millen is awesome. And we're gonna talk Vikings Seahawks into the final hour. I also found something from Zone Coverage that is breaking down who we as Vikings fans, if we want that number 1 seed, step 1, win out. But the second thing is, with Strength of Victory, who are we rooting for on a week-by-week basis, as fluid as this thing is? I'm going to hit on that during the final hour as well. You heard Max Fuller. He's producing today. I'm Nordo in for PA on a Thursday, a snowy one at that. Thanks for hanging out with us on the Fan. Vikes Bites is next.
Don't miss out on the Friday football feast this week at Buffalo Wild Wings Apple Valley. Join PA and Charge as they get set for the showdown with the Seahawks on Sunday. Enjoy great food and drinks and enter to win great prizes. Doors open at 8 a.m. Get the full details now at KFAN.com. Keyword calendar.
From the text line, I'm getting a nice wide spectrum of thoughts on this. It's all love with Wolves fans and Cat. That's what one person says. Troy boy, you guys are so Pollyanna Minnesotan. Cat was a cancer to the team. Bill and Hutchinson. Cat was the biggest whiner about fouls. He did whine about fouls. I mentioned that. That's true. Absolutely. Can Max address all the old white men on the station routinely accusing the Wolves and the NBA of not caring? Not a lot you can do with the old white men on the station. Sorry, Max.
It's not a whole lot that I can do about that texter guy. Sorry.
Just be patient.
Trying to represent.
All you can do is be patient,
It's
Max.
KFAN, not KMOJ.
Welcome back. 9 to noon on the Fan. Well stated. That's Max Fuller. I'm Eric Nordquist, Nordo, and for PA 9 to noon. It's a 305er on Sunday at Lumen Field in Seattle. Your 12-2 Vikings are facing the 8-6 Seattle Seahawks, and each and every day we do something called Vikes Bites. And Vikes Bites is provided by Thousand Hills, lifetime grazed, grass-fed beef. You can shop online. Box of meat shows up at your doorstep. Give them a little grace if it's a snowy day like today, but it'll be there. Otherwise, local co-ops, local Coburns locations, they're also proud sponsors of Gophers Athletics. And so we always appreciate Thousand Hills lifetime grazed grass-fed beef. Where are we headed to from a Vikes Bites perspective, Max? Where are we going to first?
We're going to the injury report, Nordo, as we got our first injury reports ahead of Sunday's showdown with the Seahawks. Brian O'Neill was listed as a limited participant along with Harrison Phillips, Harrison Smith, Patrick Jones, and David Quessenberry. So lots of names on the limited list. But some good news on the other side. Stephon Gilmore was a full participant, and I believe he told the St. Paul Pioneer Press that he plans to play on Sunday. The Seahawks are dealing with quite a bit of injuries themselves. They got a couple of running backs, including Kenneth Walker III, who did not participate. DK Metcalf as well did not participate, but a positive for them, if you're a Seahawks fan, is Geno Smith was a full participant. So after some consternation and concern earlier in the week, it looks like Geno is a go for Sunday.
Yeah, I'm so happy to see that Stephon Gilmore will be back in the mix, and that's not just to be harsh on Fabian Moreau or anything like that, but we are so strapped at that spot. So having Stephon Gilmore ready to rock, as we talked about it yesterday, Brian O'Neill, the fact that he's going to be in the mix this week, and it sounds like he avoided anything bad. We dig that. Dallas Turner, actually a late addition. They put out the injury report, and we read through it, and you nailed some of the biggest ones, Max, but then suddenly there's a revision, and Dallas Turner's limited with a knee. So that's something to follow. Now, on their side, man, this thing's ugly. And it's this time of year. Geno Smith, the topic for them, and it does sound like that he's a 90% playing on Sunday. So any drama in relation to that, any jokes in relation to elevating Jaron Hall, remember that name from the practice squad? That's unlikely to happen. But the key is, and I'm glad I mentioned Hugh Millen last segment and joining during the final hour, I do want to dig into just their trouble at times. Like, what is the identity of the Seattle Seahawks? So they got a new head coach, and they're not elite at anything, but they're not bad at anything. And so with Kenneth Walker, I think it was a calf that's kind of messed him up the last couple of weeks. They have had trouble running the ball for the most part, or at least running the ball consistently all season. Zach Charbonnet, he did not. He's got this oblique thing that popped. So what's up with him this week? But save for a blow-up game from him a couple of weeks ago, I think against Arizona, running the ball has not been great for them. And DK Metcalf, the physical athletic specimen that he is, he just can't get right. The rookie Jackson Smith-Njigba has absolutely become the atopic receiver for them on a week-by-week basis. So excited to talk with Hugh in terms of how things are going. They're begging. Just reading a couple articles from some Seattle papers over the last 2 days. Fan base is begging for DK Metcalf to lift off, and it just really hasn't happened. So and then Lockett backstage, he's completely disappeared. But he's being rested on a weekly basis. But they got some cool players on that team. Tariq Woolen just blew up on the stage a few years ago as a rookie corner for them. He's massive. Take a look at him if you have time or if you care about this sort of stuff. 6'4", 210, 215 pounds, massive receiver. I'm interested to hear maybe does Woolen follow guys around? Is that is this going to be one of those things where we're talking about Justin Jefferson versus Reek Woolen over the weekend? Now, in terms of splashy plays, it's trailed off. He's in his third season. I think he had 6 picks and maybe a touchdown or 2. But he blew up as a rookie. And it sounds like he's kind of regressed a bit, or at least has not followed that trajectory in kind, but very good player on the defense and somebody to watch. But injuries stacking up for the Seahawks, and for the most part, looking at Jalen Redmond, sad for him, as he's been a big contributor over the last month. He's got that concussion. Is he able to play this weekend? Hopefully he gets his head right. That's the A topic for him. But for the most part, staying healthy as we enter this stretch. We see what's going on with Detroit. That's a big feather in our cap that we have the bodies to go to work with. And Ivan Pace, Kevin O'Connell was not committed to the idea that immediately he's going to be back after missing 4 games. This Seahawks game is the last of his IR stint. And then as of next week, they can do that designated to return and open that practice window for him, hopefully. And it sounded like it was a situation where he could potentially play in that Packers game. And if not, he's definitely available for Week 18 against the Kitties. So while we're seeing some other teams having some health issues, the Vikings are getting healthier. So that's good news all around. But no Jaron Hall this weekend. So that's disappointing. Vikes Bites!
Vikes Bites! Another note on Tyreek Woolen. He's also a price-saving kind of guy, because when he posted a screenshot when he was out injured watching the NFL, he was watching the NFL Red Zone on a bootleg website.
Oh, he was?
Yeah.
I saw a Schefter tweet, and I assume... Did you see that?
I saw that, too.
I assume Schefter, took that
he had to
screenshot
have taken
from somebody.
It from someone, because there's no way Schefter's bootlegging
But
the
then
NFL.
he's stuck in this conundrum, and I saw he was going after Doug Gottlieb, who has been a talk show host and reporter for a long time.
Yeah, he fried him up, yeah.
He's coaching Green Bay. Got a little more personal. But Gottlieb, a lot of these guys, I can't speak for Schefter. He's been nothing but good to this show and to us over the course of time working with him at the Combine. But there is you just copy and paste what an agent sends you. There is that perception that exists.
Right.
And so Schefter is stuck in a spot here. Do I admit that I just took this screenshot from some rube off of X, or do I admit that I'm illegally streaming NFL content? Which way do I go? Well, the best way to do it is just ignore it and pretend it never happened.
Right. There's so much going on the internet. Everybody already forgot about it, except for me, because I'm watching stuff on bootleg too. Going over to the power rankings, pretty much universally on CBS Sports, USA Today, The Athletic, Bleacher Report, NFL.com, Yahoo Sports, Sports Illustrated, every single last one of those websites or organizations has the Vikings at number 5 in the power rankings. How do you feel about the Vikings being number 5? I'm assuming Bills, Chiefs, Eagles, and maybe Lions still up there?
Yeah, it would be that would be the only 4. There's one particular team, the Packers, that I would not want to see above them in any power rankings at this stage, although the national conversation, and here we are at 12-2. And we love it. We can't, we love it here in Minnesota when they're talking about us on the biggest of stage. We love it so much that then we immediately lose our minds if they say anything negative about us on the national stage. But that's really kind of the hierarchy of things right now. The Bills look like a freight train. The Chiefs, talking, as much as I love Kevin O'Connell and the fact that he has now become the betting favorite to be the NFL Coach of the Year. I think that's cool. I think he should deserve it. Florio makes his point that the coach is simply the awards given simply to the team that was bad last year or wasn't supposed to be good. Then suddenly they're really good for 1 year, and it's kind of just who had the best season. And he's right in some respects, but frankly, if we didn't do that once in a while, although the Brian Daboll selection in 2022 is still egregious, it's still stupid and makes no sense. If we didn't do that, then Andy Reid should just win it every freaking year, because in lieu of offensive weapons and bringing in retreads and doing whatever he absolutely can to patchwork this thing together, the team doesn't lose. And they have had fewer explosive plays. The quarterback's been under more fire than he has been in years, and they are still atop the AFC with a chance to three-peat, to win 3 freaking Super Bowls in a row. And once things get to January, and if everything goes through Arrowhead, how can you, even with the Bills and Josh Allen, and he's flying high right now, how can you necessarily bet against them? So they're certainly in the mix, and then you mentioned the Eagles. Whatever the public or the publicizing of issues and acrimony that existed over the last couple of weeks, AJ Brown's still really good, Jalen Hurts is still really good, and Saquon Barkley has really reshaped that entire offense. They should be in the mix. And then until we pass the kiddies, we can talk about their injuries and poor coaching decisions in certain moments all we want. The kiddies are there, and if they lose this weekend, if they lose at Soldier Field and the Vikings pace the Seahawks, then we should be ahead of the Lions in the power rankings. But until then, I'm happy with the team being at 5. I'm really focused on them just going 13-2. You got another one for us?
I do. Vikes Bites. I was digging into the numbers a little bit, went Nordo for Nordo, and I saw that Geno Smith over the weekend, he threw his 4th interception of the season while the Seahawks were in the red zone, tying him with Jameis Winston for the most in the NFL. And
he has 4 picks in the red zone?
4 picks in the red zone this season. 3rd worst passer rating in the red zone in all of the NFL, only ahead of Jameis Winston and Daniel Jones.
Really?
I believe he has something like 14 TDs and 13 interceptions or something like that. And obviously the Vikings, as good as their defense is, they are the 29th ranked passing defense in the NFL. So something's got to give here, Nordo, if the Seahawks, we hope the Seahawks don't get into the red zone at all, but if they do, there should be some opportunities for Byron Murphy Jr. and those boys.
Well, here's the deal, is their offense is 24th in the NFL in the red zone. And you mentioned a QB that has thrown he threw his 4th pick over the weekend in the red zone against the Pack. But one running back can't practice, might go today in Kenneth Walker. The other running back just went down, Zach Charbonnet, with an oblique. So the quarterback throws picks in the red zone, and the running backs are hurt.
Yep.
Shut out.
Let's go.
Let's go.
Let's go.
The Vikings red zone defense and the defense in general we've had a couple areas where it felt like we can't stop anybody, but for the most part the red zone defense over this last 4 or 5 week stretch has in kind been part of the story. I think we held the Cards to 1-6. You had moments like that, just absolutely stifling to the Bears, save for that late touchdown. This red zone defense can show up when needed, and hopefully we're able to stymie Mr. Smith on Sunday at Lumen Field. So looking forward to that. Maybe some more Vikes Bites. We can hold those. We have news around 10:40 after Ben Lieber. But we're going to pause. Thank you, Thousand Hills, for Vikes Bites. Michael Russo of The Athletic, theathletic.com, covers the Minnesota Wild, covers the NHL for The Athletic. He's going to join us next as we talk about, unfortunately, an absolute butt kicking at the hands of the Florida Panthers last night. The team's super beat up right now, but they're still remaining near the top of the NHL standings. And we'll chat about that with Russo when we return 9 to noon.
Fun for the entire family. Make your way on down to the XL Energy Center to catch your Minnesota Wild in action. Tickets are still available for upcoming games. Secure yours today at wild.com/hockey tickets.
Joining us now, speaking of hockey, speaking of the Wild,
Russo Radio.
The Athletic, theathletic.com, at Russo Hockey. Michael Russo, how are you doing this morning, sir?
I'm doing good. It's crazy how snowy it is out.
Yeah, absolutely. Are you able to? You didn't have to go anywhere this morning, so you're chilling at the pad, dialing up in a virtual world, the whole thing, comfy with the coffee, the whole thing.
Yep, I got the coffee out. Wild aren't practicing today, so no reason to go outside. I have a couple of stories to write on the Utah Hockey Club, so working on that and a couple other national stories. And it's nice to have Joe Smith back. He got last night's late game.
Oh, he did. Welcome back, Joe. Congrats on the baby. Here you go. Here's a late one.
Yeah, and here's he probably walked out of that rink in the middle of a snowstorm. I don't know what time this started, but he probably walked out around 1:30 in the morning. That was a late one last night.
You know, you mentioned you're writing something on Utah, and of course your timing is always impeccable, if not planned, with Utah in town on Friday. How was it earlier Wild get out alive at Utah. How are they becoming either acclimated to? How have they accommodated or drawn in? Is Utah a spot where you think this thing can work?
Yeah, no, I do. I mean, anything's going to be better than what was going on in Arizona, and it starts with ownership. They have a committed owner with a big portfolio that's willing to invest and spend money, and they're going to work on in the next 2 or 3 years, really renovating the heck out of Delta Center, building an area around downtown where they're going to have a really cool arena district. They already are well into construction of a permanent practice facility 20 minutes outside the city. They took over part of a shopping center, 111 acres, and are building a state-of-the-art practice facility all on the owner's dime. And so I do think it's good. What they've done already to make this franchise feel like an NHL team is pretty remarkable. The way that they got this organization overnight last April and were able to drop the puck on this season starting now. I mean, you walk in their locker room, you never know that this was sort of hustled together, and same thing with the visitors' locker room. Super impressive. Obviously, they got work to do on that arena. There's an irony that the Phoenix Coyotes were born in a basketball arena at America West Arena with obstructed seats, and they now have to do the same thing with the Utah Jazz's arena. But they have really good plans over the next 3 years, depending on how far the Utah Hockey Club goes and the Utah Jazz goes, on every single summer, really renovating part of the arena to make it a full quality fan experience that they just can't get right now with 5,000 obstructed seats in that arena.
Yeah. Hey, and dumb question that kind of spawns from, as you were talking about Utah trying to make this thing a home. You mentioned the practice facility, and they're taking over a shopping center, owners paying for it, the whole thing. Well, Craig Leopold, kind of similarly, maybe differently, you have TRIA, you have the practice facility. How often is it? You know this, you joined for almost all of them. We do Vox in the Box at XL Energy Center for years. And then we've actually transitioned with John Hines deciding that he wants to hold practice and utilize some really nice stuff that they have on the premises at TRIA. And how often is it that a team has a separate practice facility than like we were doing for years, just going to the X on game day, having the morning skate in the actual arena? Is that a common thing in the NHL?
Yeah, the majority of teams have separate practice arenas, practice facilities. Some teams, just because also, you're playing in multi-purpose arenas, so there's a lot of times that you just can't practice there. So the majority of teams have that. The Wild obviously have one of the best in the NHL. Some teams have practice facilities sort of attached to their arena. Prudential Center in Newark have that. Nationwide and Columbus have that, where the players walk from their locker rooms over to the practice facility. But most people don't practice on their home rinks anymore, and it's a little bizarre because you almost think you'll get a better sort of sense and feeling for what a game would be like if you practice there, at least on game days. But the Wild, the one big change that they made this year was moving their morning skates back over to TRIA, and one big reason is the bells and whistles that they have there. They can also go on at 10:30 and not feel like they're pressured to get off, because in the NHL, you have to be off for the visiting team by 11:15. So, they don't have that anymore. They have obviously all their chefs over at TRIA as well to give them a pregame meal and things like that. So, that's the big genesis for moving over to TRIA this year.
Well, I'm sure the pregame meal was fantastic, but it didn't translate to production on the ice. They just got throttled by the defending champs last night. As we're grinding through, I had John Hines on yesterday, tried to make light of the fact that he's, it's almost like he's got half the press conference is devoted to updates and various injury tracks with so many different players. How do you think they're handling it as John Hines and the crew moves forward?
Well, this is the first time all season that they're really up against it. I mean, they've dropped 4 of their last 6 games. A couple of losses have been quite unimpressive. I mean, the Vegas game could have gone either way, but they were, as you mentioned, beaten badly last night by Florida, beaten badly by Edmonton. Obviously, their loss before that in LA, it wasn't a very good game. Schedule wasn't set up for a good game, but still no excuses. Every team has tough parts of their schedule. Vegas walked in here the other night after getting in at 11 a.m. from Edmonton and still wound up a way to get 2 points. So it could be done. The injuries are the concern right now, because now for the first time, like it was one thing to get by with fourth liners on your AHL guys on your fourth line, but you still had, guys like Trenton in the lineup and Middleton and people like that. But now they are playing a team full of AHLers. I mean, when Ben Jones is on your third line, that's, your depth is being tested. And, we've made so much of Eriksson Ek and Middleton being out and obviously Gustafsson, but not having Lauko and Trenton out are taking away actual NHL players from your third and fourth lines. And now you have a lineup full of guys like Brendan Gaunce, who, with all due respect, is not an NHL player, and, Devin Shore and Ben Jones. And Ben Jones and Devin Shore have fit in well, but these guys have played 14, 15 games and don't even have an assist. I mean, at least Lucchini and Lettieri would get points.
Yeah.
These guys don't get points. So they are really just, dependent on Matt Boldy and Eric and Zuccarello and Rossi and Kaprizov to score every single game, or they have no ability to win right now. Freddie Goudreau's in a funk. Ryan Hartman's in a major funk. 1 goal in his last 21 games, no points in his last 13. And when you're moved up to second line center to replace Joel Eriksson Ek and you're getting no production from Hartman, that's a big time problem. So right now they're up against it. And now the biggest concern today is what's the status with Brock Faber. I mean, last night's injury looks scary. He's out there with 40 seconds left, and takes a scary shot from Luostarinen right to his throat. And right now we don't have an update. And I know he was taken to the hospital, hopefully just for precautionary measures. I do know that the players were shook by the whole thing. But the reports I was hearing last night was he was at least talking to people and talking to the paramedics and it didn't look like it was a total emergency. But when you take a puck to the throat, that is scary. So you got to worry about, everything, from the larynx there to, everything all around that area. And so we're still waiting on an update there. And obviously if Brock's out for an extended period of time, that just puts the depth in an even greater strain right now.
No, it's the way that this thing is laid out. It's an absolute mash unit, and the throat situation, whether that's problem breathing, problem eating, the pain that's going to emanate from that in the following days, if not a bit longer. Even if everything is intact and okay, I wouldn't expect to see him on the ice, at least maybe for a couple of games. Now,
yeah, I don't want, I won't speculate until we hear something from the Wild.
That's the better way to do it. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, the Wild, unfortunately, they don't give really detailed injury updates. That's been their practice. Hopefully with this one, they realized because of how scary it looked and not just how important a player is, how just scary it looked, that hopefully we get a little more of a detailed update on how Brock is doing, because obviously everybody's worried about him.
Well, and everybody saw it too. You can't just say upper body injury. I mean, there has to be something related to specifically what happened there. Anything? I mean, all good with Buss in this short-term issue, Gus Buss, in terms of Wallstedt has to come in and he makes his debut against Vegas. Great piece, by the way, kind of on his trials and tribulations over the last year or so, Wallstedt. But John is kind of every day. You guys ask him, and every day it's still good, it's still fine, even if maybe everything's okay. Maybe there's some rest that needs to be part of the equation as well, or non-activity as part of the recovery. What do we think about Gustafsson?
Yeah, I mean, he's been on the ice. He was on the ice yesterday with Eriksson Ek, so that's the good news. They really do believe that it's a minor issue that he's dealing with, and the question is, do you rush him back to play one of these 2 games against Utah or in Winnipeg, or the Chicago game, or do you just almost, keep him out until after the Christmas break, let him get a full week's worth of further rest, and then you have him ready to go and healthy once the schedule resumes in Dallas after the break? I think that's the biggest question mark. They're not practicing today. Obviously, with the snowstorm out, I don't even know if Eriksson Ek and Gustafsson will go down to the arena to skate. But if they do, there's a chance, obviously, we see them this weekend. I think it's just good that they're out there skating. I think that the fact that Gus is on the ice so soon after what the Wild have been saying is just a minor soreness issue, that's a definite sign that they definitely have looked into this, gave him an MRI, don't see any major issue there. And this is just, what goalies have to deal with when you're playing a lot and playing the position that they get. It's just sort of the virtue of the position that you deal with soreness every now and then.
Last couple for you, Michael Russo, The Athletic, theathletic.com, at Russo Hockey via X. To the actual team itself, see, this is what happens, is every day, every interview, every press conference, it's like it's all about injuries, but in the same sense, this team, save for 4 of their last 6, as you mentioned, this team has been atop the NHL standings for most of it. But in talking with the coach yesterday, I just kind of found it interesting because you kind of kept a tracker of this a year ago about the Minnesota Wild, and that was a non-playoff season, how they performed against some of the best in the West. And I just kind of asked him, hey, at what point, you want 2 points in every game, certainly, but at what point do you start kind of measuring how this team shapes up against the Dallas Stars and against the Winnipegs and against these contenders? And, he kind of talked about, that's for the springtime. That's for not for the now time per se, but as you look at things and assuming that some of these injuries jump back into healthy players, what are you seeing in a night-by-night basis that, you look at a team second in the Central, a team that certainly is contending for a playoff spot, very much in that mix. What are you seeing that either gives you confidence or gives you pause?
Well, look, they were having a great season until they ran into just, what has been an unsustainable amount of injuries for a team that just, again, is 15 plus million under the cap. So you don't have a ton of depth and you're replacing them with minor league guys. And if they are healthy, I think they're a really quality hockey team. But all the naysayers out there, until they start beating in a league where you play, you're going to have to get to where you want to go. You have to play Colorado, Winnipeg, Dallas. Until they start beating these teams, nobody's going to believe in them. And that's just a fact of life. The Wild don't beat those teams. They're 0-11-1, 0-11-2 in the last 2 years against these teams. They haven't played Colorado yet this year, but they haven't beaten Dallas or Winnipeg. And so until they get a full lineup and actually beat those teams, I think there's going to be a lot of skeptics out there. The good news is I thought that the Wild against both those teams this year were much better. Obviously, those games didn't go off the rails. They could have gone either way, and they didn't win. So they have a lot of time to fix it. But they've got to figure out a way to get healthy bodies back into the lineup, and then they're going to have to repatch their games in a league where now you don't practice ever. They're going to have to try to find their mojo back, and there's certain concerns that have been there all year long. One is their expected goals. Other than Kaprizov and Boldy and those guys, they don't generate a lot of offensive chances. And now that we're starting to see their defense slip significantly in the last week or two, that's a huge concern. They're bleeding goals right now. I think they've given up 25 goals in their last 6 games. Their penalty kill is god awful. Have given up 7 goals on their last 15 chances, and just keep on sinking there. So there's a lot of things that they are now going to have to patch together. Plenty of time to still do it, but you sure hope that they get some healthy bodies back and that they can just be, in a position come March and April where they're going to have a full lineup to see what they're really made out of.
And you mentioned you got some things going on Utah, specifically Utah in the building on Friday night, some national pieces as well. You got a day to focus in and burn up that home row on the keyboard and put some stuff up on The Athletic, right?
Yeah, we got a bunch of stuff coming, and we get some really good features coming on the Wild as well. And again, this has been a really quality first 32 games for the Wild, and you just hope that they are not in a position right now with all these injuries just racking up where they're just going to lose their mojo significantly and go into a significant funk. They still got plenty of time to get out of it, 3 games before the break, and then a pretty favorable schedule when they come out of the break. But we'll see how they can patch this thing together. But first things first, they sure are hoping that Brock Faber is okay today.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for all you do. Thanks for joining me. Have a great day, and we'll talk again soon, sir.
Yep. See you, Nordo. And actually, tomorrow I'm filling in for Barrero, so we'll have a lot of hockey talk tomorrow night.
Oh, sweet. That's awesome. Thank you. Okay, that's Michael Russo, The Athletic, theathletic.com. And also, you'll hear him hosting Bumper to Bumper tomorrow afternoon, 3 to 6:30. So look forward to that. It's Nordo in for PA 9 to noon, 10 a.m. hour. Switches to the purple. Ben Lieber, weekly guest, in studio next.